A doting husband and father mysteriously vanishes.
The plan was he was going to go hunting pretty early, do his duck hunting, come back. He and his wife, it was their 6th wedding anniversary the next day.
He and his wife were scheduled to go and celebrate that anniversary. She was severely distraught.
His family desperate for answers.
There really weren't a whole lot of clues other than the fact that it simply looked like he went duck hunting and he did not return.
They thought maybe he'd fallen out of the boat and maybe he'd hit his head, and they were hoping they would find him alive. Maybe an alligator or several alligators had gotten Michael and they had eaten him.
How would you describe his last moments?
Confused and terrified.
Hi, I'm Nancy O'Dell. Today's Crime Exposé takes us to Lake Seminole, Florida, located 60 miles northwest of Tallahassee. It was here that 31-year-old Mike Williams went duck hunting alone and never returned. As law enforcement launched a massive effort to bring him home, they never could have imagined the stunning direction their investigation would take. As cold winds swept in over Lake Seminole, Mike Williams' family became concerned.
He set out in the morning to go duck hunting, and he never returned. So once mid-morning starts rolling around, people started getting alarmed as to where he was.
You know, his wife expected him to come back around noon. They had a big evening. They were going to go celebrate their 6th wedding anniversary, so he was expected to be back pretty soon, and he didn't show up, and that's when she started to get worried.
How reliable was he known to be?
He was very reliable. He was devoted father, devoted husband, hard worker. For him not to show up was a pretty big deal. His wife, Denise, seemed to be very worried. She called her father when he didn't show up. They started calling friends, if maybe he was with them. His best friend, Brian Winchester, and his dad went to all the places that they knew that Mike liked to hunt around Lake Seminole.
Was it normal for Mike to go duck hunting by himself?
It seemed to be unusual that he went by himself because everyone said he typically went with someone. They started searching, and there was a lot of concern.
Every second counted, and they scoured the area for his boat and his truck.
The leading theory was that he had gone out duck hunting and his boat had turned over or something had happened and caused him to fall overboard.
When Brian and his dad went looking, they went to all the spots that they knew he liked to launch his boat from. They found his Bronco and the trailer.
His truck was found on the north side of Lake Seminole. There really weren't a whole lot of clues to it.
They expanded their search, hoping to locate Mike's boat.
It was Brian Winchester that ended up finding it with a friend.
Did they find any clues inside Mike's boat?
There were some strange things about the boat. One was that there were 2 life preservers in it. There was Michael's shotgun was still in its case. The motor had run out. The motor was was on, but it powered out. But the tank was full of gas. That was what kind of got a lot of people wondering what really happened.
That's when alarm turned into panic, and Mike's family notified authorities, who quickly took action.
They started rallying their troops, if you will, and started taking command of the search and what they assumed and hoped would be a rescue operation. The thoughts were that he was on an island or something along those lines, kind of beached and couldn't get back. So everybody was out there looking. They had helicopters for FWC as well as people that live out towards the Lake Seminole area.
But it was tremendously challenging.
Lake Seminole comes out of a river. It's a reservoir, so it's actually recreated by a dammed up river, and it is very, very large. It actually it starts almost in Georgia and comes down. It's just a very, very large lake. And of course, there are marshes all around it.
They ended up bringing in cadaver dogs to see if maybe they could find a body somewhere washed on shore.
As the minutes ticked by, the entire community was baffled by his disappearance.
Everybody came together as a community hoping to find him, but the vast majority of thoughts are, how could this possibly happen to Mike Williams? He's such an experienced duck hunter. He knows the rules. He knows the safety aspect. He's trained himself in safety aspects. At one point, he had taught himself how to get out of waders should he fall over and start drowning as a result of having waders on. Mike was extremely experienced. He'd been duck hunting almost all his life.
As day turned into night, the theories became even more ominous.
Maybe an alligator, because there are quite a few alligators there at Lake Seminole, may have possibly gotten him.
It was horrifying because alligators don't eat you whole. They take you to a hiding hole that they have and may feast on the remains for quite some time. So it's a horrifying death.
So the theory was that that's why a body had not been found and things along those lines, because an alligator had taken him.
Little did Mike's family know, it was just the beginning of their long and painful nightmare.
She noticed a man climbing from behind. He pulls out a gun, pokes it in her ribs, trying to force her to listen to him.
For Mike Williams' family, his sudden disappearance while duck hunting left them with sorrow, heartache, and too many unanswered questions.
The fact that they never found a body, did the alligators really get him?
There was no obvious signs of any kind of foul play. By all accounts, he was supposed to have been alone, gone duck hunting alone.
As you investigated this story, what did you learn about Mike Williams?
He was, from all accounts, an all-American kid in high school, married his high school sweetheart. He really came from nothing and made himself into what he was. He earned a six-figure salary as a property appraiser in Tallahassee. They seemed to have an ideal life.
They just had a really close family and was really just basking in the joy of marriage and his newborn daughter.
On the day of his disappearance, Mike and Denise had plans to celebrate their 6th wedding anniversary. But as the weeks went by, his family had to face the devastating reality that he might never be found.
About 6 months later, what ended up happening was a fisherman found his waders and his jacket in the water. And that seemed, for law enforcement and for judges, that seemed to clinch it that Mike was dead.
A memorial service was held in his honor.
It's a hollow feeling usually at those type of memorial services, because you're still wondering, are they going to, is the body going to show up, or is he going to come knocking on the door one day and show up? It's that lingering feeling of doubt that you just don't get closure.
While Denise focused on raising their daughter, lingering doubts remained for Mike's mother.
She would declare he was not eaten by alligators. He's not dead. Can you please help me find my son? She even went as far as buying billboards here in town for saying the same. Had a helpline. She would contact the governor. She would contact Florida Department of Law Enforcement and any other persons and agencies that would listen to try and get their assistance in order to renew the search and try and figure out and open an investigation as to Mike's disappearance.
Why was Mike's mother so convinced that law enforcement needed to keep looking into Mike's disappearance?
It was just motherly instinct. She knew he was not in Lake Seminole. She knew he was not eaten by alligators.
There was a lot of whispers, a lot of concern what really happened to him.
Years went by, and Denise Williams tried to move on.
Denise just started living her life. She started raising her daughter. She dated occasional persons. Eventually, her and Brian Winchester, who was Mike Williams' best friend growing up, eventually ended up getting married.
But years later, the couple grew apart.
Eventually, Denise and Brian became separated, and the marriage kind of sat in limbo. He had moved out, but nothing really formally towards divorce proceedings happened for quite a number of years.
But Denise never could have predicted what would happen when she got into her car one fateful morning. It would change her life forever.
She noticed a man climbing from behind that third row of seats, and she realizes it's Brian, and he gets into the passenger seat. He pulls out a gun, pokes it in her ribs, trying to force her to listen to him.
What did he say to her?
He's upset because she hadn't returned his text messages or won't answer his phone calls. And he said he had to do this because he had to get her to listen to him. And he rambles a lot about how he's going to kill himself. He has nothing to live for.
Denise believed she was about to die when Brian reached into the back seat.
Reaches behind that third seat and pulls out a tarp, a spray bottle of bleach, and some sort of tool. And then it really dawns on her that he was going to kill her. His plan was to kill her.
Eventually, Denise talked him down and convinced him to let her go.
She's promising she's not going to tell anybody about this.
But once Denise was free, she quickly reported the attack to police, still fearing for her life.
And he's stuck in your vehicle, and there he was.
He's going to find out that I told, after I promised him over and over and over that I wouldn't worry about me and my daughter and where we're going to live and how we're going to be safe.
So what went through your mind when you heard Brian Winchester had pulled a gun on Denise?
At that point, everybody just basically believed we finally caught the break we needed to figure out what happened to Mike Williams. So it was all hands on deck.
Brian Winchester was arrested and charged with armed kidnapping. Investigators were convinced they were finally going to uncover what had happened to Mike Williams.
Do you think he's responsible for Mike's disappearance?
This is a very unique situation because we had Denise Williams, who we really didn't know whether she had any involvement in Mike's disappearance or not.
After Brian Winchester's arrest for kidnapping his estranged wife Denise, detectives wondered if Denise and Brian had something to do with her first husband's disappearance.
Nobody knew what happened to Mike Williams.
From behind bars, Brian Winchester reached out to prosecutors and said he was ready to talk about the day Mike Williams vanished.
And I think the guilt and all the other demons caught up with him. You know, Brian and Denise's relationship falling apart was the trigger. If they had stayed together, we probably would never have gotten the story ever solved.
We negotiated what they call a proffer agreement, which is he would provide us information in exchange for leniency.
And what he revealed was a bombshell.
At some point, did you and Denise become an item, I guess, if you will, prior to 2000?
Yes, sir.
When was that?
When did it start?
Yes, sir.
The date that we used was October 13th, 1997. But there was a lot that led up to that point, a lot of background.
Brian and Denise had been having an affair for 3 years before Mike went missing. They wanted to be together all the time. Denise didn't want a divorce. So for some reason, murder became the solution.
I think it was gradual that the more we were together, the more we wanted to be together. So yes, we eventually started talking about options and ways that we could be together. I'm not going to sit here and say that Denise planned everything and I was just a dumb guy who went along with what she wanted to do. I instigated a lot of it.
And she was not real comfortable about being a divorced mother. Ironically enough, I guess she was okay with being a murderer instead.
Brian told police they enacted an elaborate plot so Denise could collect on Mike's life insurance policy.
Denise received about $1.8 million insurance.
Brian Winchester made a deal with prosecutors and was sentenced to 20 years in prison in exchange for his testimony against Denise. Denise Williams was put on trial for first-degree and conspiracy to commit murder. As her trial unfolded, the courtroom was silent as Brian Winchester took the stand.
He was the star witness. He was the whole case. Brian made it that Denise was a full partner in everything but the actual murder itself, that she was part of the planning, part of the cover-up, and really painted Denise as a conniving wife, unfaithful wife.
When Brian Winchester testified, what did he say was their plan?
They could kill Mike and make it appear to be an accident by taking him duck hunting.
Brian testified once Mike was in the boat, he set their scheme into motion.
Brian then gets Mike to stand up in the boat, and then he is able to knock him overboard. His idea is just to sit down and watch him drown. He says at that point, things started going astray. That Mike was able to get out of his waders and was not, in fact, drowning, and had now clung to a stump, yelling to his friend, "Help me, help me, help me."
I had my gun in the boat. And, so I loaded my gun, and I made 1 or 2 circles around, and I ended up circling closer towards him, and he was in the water. And as I passed by, I shot him.
Where did you shoot him?
In the head.
How would you describe Mike Williams' last moments alive?
Confused and terrified. He's literally gone out thinking, hey, it's my anniversary, I've got this great baby at the house. My life couldn't be any better. I'm out here duck hunting. I got a great wife that's going to let me go duck hunting on the morning of our anniversary. And the next thing you know, Mike's looking down the barrel of a shotgun as it goes off.
It's horrifying. Here you are with your best friend, your lifelong friend. This is somebody that you've hunted with and palled with, and y'all's wives have all been close. Y'all, and all of a sudden, and you see him come up with a gun. And you're screaming for help. It just had to be a nightmare.
According to Brian, he buried Mike's body in a dry lake bed.
And he ends up showing law enforcement where Mike was buried.
And now the fate of Denise Williams was in the hands of the jury.
At the end of her trial, Denise Williams was convicted for orchestrating her husband Mike Williams' murder. She was sentenced to life in prison. A year later, she filed an appeal and her conviction was reversed, but the charge for conspiracy to commit murder was upheld. She was resentenced to 30 years behind bars. And now, it's time for today's Safety Spotlight. Statistics show a correlation between infidelity and violence. In extreme situations, that violence may escalate into a crime of passion, or in this case, a calculated murder. Experts say warning signs of infidelity include changes in behavior or appearance, lack of intimacy, and unusual financial transactions. If you experience intimate partner violence or fear for your safety, reach out to local law enforcement or contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE. I'm Nancy O'Dell. For all of us here at Crime Exposé, please join us next time and stay safe.